Okay. Okay, well, tonight, volume 21, we're in our second year of Malach of Melabain. We're going to start on page 87, but before we start, we're going to do a brief review, a brief chazara on last week's shir. So last week, we're on page 112, we're going to use the Tzurba's review sheet. And last week, we saw that the Malacha of Melabain is also known as whitening, right? To make it lava, make it white, blanching, which was to take the wool of the sheep and make it white. And laundering, the Rambam tells us, making other clothing more cleaner and white is a tolda, still also deraisa, right? Any acts of removing stains, says the Orchot Shabbat, is the malacha of Melabain. Then we saw that the Mishnah said, if you have some filth on a cushion, you can wipe it away. And Rashi said, without water. Why is that? Rashi said, because water going onto clothing, going onto fabric is already considered laundering, right? As the Gemara in Zvachim says, merely soaking constitutes laundering. Okay, so then we had a question. The Gemara in Yuma tells us that a person wants to go see his Rebbe, he can walk into a river on Yom Tov and on Yom Kippur. And a woman who's coming out of Nida and she has no clothing, she can go into the water, into the mikvah with her clothing. I thought that soaking was considered laundering. So Tosfot and source and review bullet point 5, and soaking is laundering, tells us two possible answers. The Re says, number one, it's only considered soaking is laundering when the clothing is dirty. And here, we're assuming that the person's clothing is clean, so therefore, there's no problem getting it into water. That's the Re. And that's the halacha l'maisa, the way Shulchan Aruch goes. That's the way the Yalkut Yosef goes. And the other opinion is, that was the Rabbeinu Tam, and the Rabbeinu Tam says, soaking is only laundering when it's done in a cleansing water, right? When you're using water to clean it. But when there is not cases of cleansing water, meaning you're not doing it to clean, it's getting lichloch, it's getting worse, it's getting dirtier by going into the water and stuff like that, then it's not considered laundering. Okay? What about the Re, who says, if you take, if the fabric is dirty, can I wipe my hands on a towel? So we said that perhaps the Re would also agree that even if the towel is there and you're doing it derech lichloch, you're getting it dirty, then it's not considered laundry and you're able to wipe your hands on a towel. We saw that says in bullet point 7, in the case of soiled garment, it's forbidden even to drop it into water. So if it's a little bit dirty, says Shulchan Aruch, like the Re, you can't put it into water. The Ramah, it's permitted to apply small amount of water to fabric which is not in need of cleaning. So if it's a clean fabric, right, there's no problem with laundering according to the Re, so you can put a small amount of water. We'll deal more with that today. The Bir Halacha says, be strict and don't even put water on a clean bagged. Yalkut Yosef, no, the Halacha Ikar Din is when it's a dirty bagged. Getting water is considered laundering. But a clean bagged, not, but it's better not to put water on a clean garment either, clean fabric either. We talked about applying the water dirties the fabric, like your towel and stuff like that, then that would not be considered laundering. You're allowed to wipe your hands on a towel. The Shulchan Aruch is still a little bit worried about this. The Shulchan Aruch says, make sure your hands don't have much water on, get it off before you wipe it, right? The Ramah says you don't have to be worried about that. And the Piskei Teshuvot, when washing one's hands or dishes, one should avoid pouring or splashing water onto fabric. So although there's no problem with getting clean, they got them wet, right, or getting a dirty bagged wet in the derech lichloch, still a person should try to stay away from getting the godim wet in any place. Then the issue was, what about if it's not fabric? All right, fabric is porous; the water goes into it. What about if it's leather? Okay, leather, the water just goes on the top of it; it doesn't go all the way inside. So the Mishnah told us it does, but it doesn't. It's not as porous, so it's not going in and absorbing. You throw water on it, you wipe off the top, that's it. It's not inside of it. It's not really going in. I guess if you put a lot of water and you soak it for a long time, it'll go in, right? So the Mishnah told us you're allowed to apply water to wash away the filth, right? Because it's not absorbing, so therefore it's not considered laundering. Soaking is laundry by clothing that right away get absorbed in the water. Here it's not happening like that. Rashi in page 113, Rashi in source number 2, while it's permitted to wet leather, it's forbidden to launder it properly, meaning agitating it. You're not allowed to agitate the leather. You're not allowed to scrub off with the wetness on it. That's considered laundry. That's for sure considered laundry. We're just saying you're allowed to put it in water or put water on it. All right. Shulchan Aruch, in order to clean a shoe, one may wet it, but it's forbidden to scrub it. Now, we made a big distinction between water and cleansing agents, right? Rabbi Yashiv told us that don't think that a cleansing agent is water and it's just liquid. No, a cleansing agent, it's meant to clean something, right? Bleach or whatever it is. It's meant to do the job of cleaning and making it white. That's not okay, even if it's leather, because that's going to whiten it, and that's going to make it the sort of milabing. Right. I don't know whatever they use, but okay. So that is dafka made to clean. So you can't say, oh, it's like a liquid and it's fine. No, it's not. The Aruch Shabbat says, yes, you can pour water on your shoes, that the Shulchan Aruch said, but what are your shoes made out of? If your shoes are made out of leather with some strings of fabric, threads of fabric, then you can't do that. It's only if it's really completely leather. Okay. Then we had the question about plastic, right? What would be the din of plastic? We have the most mystical opinion of Chacham Ben Zion Abba Shaul, who said plastic is not a beged. Plastic is considered a keli, right? And as such, there's no problem with laundering it, wetting it, scrubbing it. No problem when it comes to plastic, according to Chacham Ben Zion Abba Shaul, because it's not a keli. But Moshe Feinstein says, I don't know what it is because it's a new invention. Therefore, you should be a little bit more strict. And you can pour water on them, but don't forcibly scrub them, right? Pnei Halacha tells us it's fabric that's the issue, but wooden items, in a kalim, your pots, your pans, your plates, these are not a problem of milabein. Okay. Then we dealt with some.
Plastic can't be worse than I mean, wood definitely absorbs water.
But we're saying wood is a keli, it's not a baguette. So how do you view plastic? Like here, this plastic on top of the tablecloth, right? This tablecloth is the baguette. It's considered fabric. Is this fabric-like, or is this not fabric-like? Is it a keli? Is it not? That's the question here. Says it's a keli. It's not a baguette. It's not fabric, right? But Moshe says I don't know what it is, so therefore let's be more strict about it. Synthetic fibers. Are you permitted to? So like you said, polyester, synthetic fibers. Is it laundry or is it not when I'm getting it wet? So says the Shmirat Shabbat, Yalkut Yosef, if a garment is made exclusively out of synthetic fibers, it's permitted to soak them in water on Shabbat. However, it's forbidden to rub them when wet. So synthetic fibers, it's not really clothing, it's like leather. You can put water on it, but you can't scrub it. Okay, it's not a keli, it's a beged, but it's like leather. That's the way they see it. The Aruch Shabbat is more strict. He says if it quacks like a duck, right? It looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, then it's a duck. Right? Meaning that if it's a shirt and it acts like a shirt, I don't care if it's made out of plastic or what. If its material is like fabric, then we have to be strict with it. Okay, so how do you look at synthetic fibers? Right, it's woven tightly, water gets stuck, so it acts like a shirt, it acts like a fabric, and therefore you can't get it wet. Then we came with the last thing that we dealt with on page 114, which was contact lenses. And the contact lenses was hard contact lenses. No one has any question. Hard contact lens is a hard plastic, which you're going to say it's a keli. It doesn't absorb. You can put it into, because what are you putting it into? What do you put contact lenses into? A cleansing solution, right? So if it's fabric or if it's leather, it's going to be a problem. Soft lenses, there's the question: is it really a keli? Is it not? But the question is, what is it at this point? So hard lenses we can say is a keli. That's what they want to say. But a soft lens, maybe it's more like a beged like. Maybe it does absorb. Maybe it's something like that. In the end of the day, you have what to rely on, Pi Halacha and others who say that it's not, maybe even if it's not a keli, it's a tool. It's a tool to see, and it's not a beged. You don't put begadim on your eyes, right? Yeah, eyeglasses is fine. Yeah, eyeglasses is
I
fine
heard
to
once
clean.
somebody told me I was washing my glasses with soap. He said, "What are you doing?" According to XYZ, he says you can't do that.
You can't wash your glasses. So I saw today, instead he brought about glasses. That's a good question. Drying glasses. No, it's a cup eyeglass. It's permissible on Shabbat to clean eyeglasses that one wishes to use that day. One may even wet the lenses and wipe them with a dry cloth if this is the case. So you're allowed to wash your glasses on Shabbat. All right. I'm there with you because at the end of the day, if you ever take off your glasses, you're going to see oils and stuff like that. Like, where did this come from? All right. So you put it on the next morning, you want a nice pair of glasses. You don't want to. Someone once told me you should actually clean it before you go to bed, right? Because the oils stay on it, they ruin the lenses. They have more time to stay on the lens and ruin it. So you want to clean it earlier. Most people, the time they get to bed, they just want to take it off and sleep. No one's bothering
Actually,
cleaning it.
coating on the lens is really what cracks the dust.
Oh, really? Yeah.
They put special coating for anti-reflective.
So, but they after some time, the coating starts to
eventually.
yeah. So sometimes by me, I've noticed about 3 years. 3 years of constantly using the same glasses, I see that the lens everything starts to get ruined. They start to get yellow and stuff like that. Okay. So that was the Chazara for last week. So B'ezrat Hashem, now we're holding on page 87. Now we're holding on page 87. And what we are dealing with here is now a gezerah that the Chachamim put into place regarding getting clothing wet. Why they didn't want our clothing to get wet. So we're starting over the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat, Kuf Yud Gimel. Kuf Yud Gimel. The Gemara says, we're talking about here about walking on Shabbat. You're not supposed to walk on Shabbat like you walk on the weekday. You're supposed to be more benachad, not doing extra steps and stuff like that. So now the question is, there's a river there. What should I do? The Amar Rav Huna Amar Rav. Ha mahalach b'Shabbat ufaga ba'amat hamayim. One is walking on Shabbat and he encounters a stream of water. Im yachol lahaniach et raglo rishona kodem shete'aker shniya mutar. If he can put 1 foot over and then walk over to the other side without a problem, mutar, he can go over this water. Im lav asur. But if not, he cannot go over this water. He's not allowed to jump over this water. He has to be able to do it foot with foot. Put 1 foot over and walk over with the next foot. He's not allowed to jump over because it's not covered for Shabbos. That's it's not the proper way of walking on Shabbat to jump over.
1 foot in the water.
Not in the water. We're talking about he's in the water in between. He has to be able to walk from here 1 foot over it and then bring the other foot. Never going into the water.
That's what it says?
Yeah. That's what it says.
I understood 1 foot goes in the water.
He's able to put his first foot down on the other side of the stream before lifting his second foot. The stream is so narrow that he's able to step over it with a single stride. Then he's allowed over it, not allowed to jump. Right, without going into the water. So now, Rava asked the question, so what do you want him to do when it's a big stream? Likaf, should he walk all the way around it? This way, kamafish behilucha, he's adding more and more steps to it. Do you want him to do that? That's not proper on Shabbat to add more and more steps. Li avar, should he cross through it by going through the water? Zminin de mitavsan mane maya. Sometimes his clothing may be soaked with water. Ve'ate lide schita. He's going to come to wring out, to do schita, extracting the water from the clothing. Okay, so it turns out, why are we worried about him not going into the water? We're worried about him not going to the water, so they shouldn't wring out his clothing. So we shouldn't extract water from the clothing. So the Gemara concludes, Eila Baha. Rather, in this case, Kivin Eloy Evshar, there's no other way to get over this river. Either he's doing a bunch of more steps, or he's going to be going into the water, which might lead him to be schita, extracting water from his clothing. Shapir Dame, then it'll be fine for him to jump over. So apparently you have permission here to jump over, if you can actually jump it over, but you shouldn't go into the water. And what did we see from here? Why shouldn't you go into the water? Because we're worried of squeezing out the water. Says the Rambam in source 37. We already saw this. Someone who cleans clothing, right? That's a tolda of milabin. But then he says the hasochet, top of page 88. The hasochet et habeged ad sheyotzi hamayim shebo harei ze mechabes v'hayav. When you squeeze out water from the clothing, that is mechabes, that is laundering. Says the Rambam, squeezing out water from the clothing, that's part of the laundering. Shaschita mitzarche kibus. Wringing out the water is part of the process of laundering. Kimon, he compares it to what? He compares it to Megas by Bishul. Remember by Bishul when we had the pot cooking on the stove and everything was already cooked, and we said you cannot stir it, right? Because stirring helps with the cooking. So says the Rambam, guess what? Schita helps with laundry, right? What's the last part of the cycle of laundry, right? You have the soaking, the active laundering, and then you have the wringing out. That's what the laundry machine does. It wrings out all the water. Otherwise, you take out all the water, you're going to wring it out yourself. Right? It takes it out. That's the schita. Okay?
You see here that it doesn't have a problem with you going in, that if you get your socks wet, that's considered laundry. It's squeezing with
right. Right.
If you're just making something wet, it's not necessarily
right. That's going to be the next question right now, I believe. Yeah, give us 1 second. That's a Tosfot. Okay. Says the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch brings this halakha that we just learned. What can he do? With the kafetz aleya, he can jump over it. He's allowed to jump over it. Why? Because you don't want to go into the water. We don't want you to go into the water because there's going to be a problem of schita. But 1 second. We saw before, what did we see before? That if a person wants to go visit his Rebbe on Yom Kippur, he's allowed to go into the water. If a woman doesn't have Taridika clothing, she can go into the mikvah on Shabbat with her clothing and make the clothing tahir by going in with them. You just told me don't go in with clothing to the water because of schita. So how in those cases, that's Rabbi, that's your question, right? Right? How can you go in? So how could you go in if it's because of schita? So says Tosfot. Vim turned over very bad to the Yoma Halach the Kappa Pana Rabbi Openay Aviv Openay Misha Gadol Hemno over Ad Savar B'Mayim in Choshesh. V'Manami Perek Beis the Beitza Gabe Tvilas Kalim B'Shabbos the need Ma remes with tovelas v'vigdeya v'lagazin dilma. Might come to schita. Don't let her in. Don't let him in. So why here we're saying don't go into the water to cross over the river? Here we're saying you're good. That's Tosfot meyesh loymar hamitzvah shadi. When it's a mitzvah, it's different. Meaning this whole thing is the gezer d'Rabbanan, right? Gezer d'Rabbanan. You might come to do schita. The whole thing is a Rabbanan thing. So the Rabbanan say when it comes for a mitzvah, we'll take away this gezerah of schita, an issue of schita. So that's a big difference. So look at the case. If it's stam, I want to get from one place from point A to point B, I'm not allowed to go into the water. But if I'm doing a mitzvah, such as visiting my Rebbe, my father, someone greater than me, or a person who needs Taridika clothing, then they would be allowed to go into the water. We're not going to be worried about schita, but this is a Rabbanan of schita over here. Now, says the Tzurba on page 88 on the bottom orange or beige box, we must still understand how the rabbinic prohibition against soaking fits with the approach of the Ri in non-mitzvah cases. The Ri permits wetting clean fabric, which is not a subject to laundering. But shouldn't the Ri agree that Ri said the whole problem of getting something wet is because it's dirty? That's laundry. If it's clean, you can get it wet. But if it's clean, maybe you shouldn't be able to get it wet. Because if you get it wet, you can have the problem of schita. So why does he say you can get clean clothing wet? So says the Ramah, taking a look at source 40, says the Ramah, uveged, she'ein alav lichluch. If you have a garment that doesn't have any dirt on it, mutter letate olav mayim mu'atim. You can put a small amount of water. V'loy merubim, but not a lot of water. Why? Shema yischot. Because if you put too much water, what's going to happen? You're going to come to extract the water from the beged. And that's going to be a problem of schita on Shabbat. So therefore, you can't do that. You have to, if it's a clean garment and you're putting some water on it, make right then you could, it has to be a small amount. So this is going to be the next section. Wiping up spills. So I have a spill. I have a huge spill. All right. I had this bottle of soda and the kid came, knocked it down. The whole table is full now of soda. And now I want to wipe it. Okay. How can I wipe it? How do I avoid the issues of schita when wiping? Can I get it wet? If I take a dirty garment, I can't really. Can I do it? Maybe it depends on what the liquid is, right? Right. The liquid's gonna make it more liquid, maybe okay. But let's say it's water. Say I spill tons of water. So water is a cleansing water. So perhaps it's the problem. It's seltzer, right? Before we move on to that, just want to read the Al Yosef as how he brings the halacha over here. It's forbidden to wet any garment, even a clean one, with a large quantity of water, since someone might then wring it out. Okay. So we're now going to go on to our next section is how do we do this practically? How do we pick up spills? Take a look at the beige box, the second line, the new sentence over there. If a small quantity of liquid spills onto a counter or floor on Shabbat, one will be permitted to dry it with a towel or rag. The rabbinic prohibition surrounding wringing does not apply in cases involving only a small amount of liquid. And both the reader and Tom would agree that the biblical prohibition does not apply either, since a towel or rag is clean, and using it to clean a spill will dirty it, right? So it's a clean rag, a clean towel, and you're dirtying it by putting this liquid into it, so it's not a problem. But if the large quantity of liquid, right, then you might still have an issue of wringing it out. Too much liquid into the towel, you might come to wring it out. So what should one do to clean up a large spill on a surface of plastic, wood, or stone? Right? In fact, there might be even another problem here. Look at the Ramah. The Ramah says in source 41, when it comes to a beged that's very wet, the aser litaltalam shama yavoy lidei schita. You're not allowed to even move a wet garment. If something is really wet and soaking, you're not allowed to move it, right? Because you might come to do schita. The minute you pick it up, right, there's a towel that's drenched wet. The minute the liquid starts to come out right away. So maybe I can't even move it. Now says the remote what? The who shemakbit amema. And the person is particular not to let them remain wet. Meaning I don't want this beged to be wet. Okay? Seemingly, if I don't care if the beged is wet, then maybe I'm allowed to move it. It's only if I care if the beged is wet, then I'm not allowed to move it. So what do? How do I pick up a spill? How do I do this whole thing? Take a look at the Shas Shuva Kol Yo, source 42. If the whole towel is wet, it's forbidden to remove it from the sink. If part of the towel is dry, it's permitted to gently lift it, but one must be careful not to wring it. So you have to be moving something that's very wet. Be very careful. Says the Tzurba, one possible solution to the problem of cleaning a large spill might be to use multiple rags or towels. Right? Don't use one towel. It's going to get so much in there, it's going to become so wet that you're going to have a problem moving it. So use 2, 3 towels. Okay? So long as no single towel or rag absorbs enough water, there should be no concern for wringing it out. Another answer he brings by the Shmirat Shabbat Kilchata, who writes that the concern that a person wring out fabric is not applicable when others are likely to prevent the person from wringing out the fabrics. If 2 or more people will pick it up together, then each one will remind each other to be careful and not do schita. Okay?
You're not talking about just afraid that it's gonna
So at this point, yeah,
Itself,
right. At this point, we're saying that
actively squeeze it.
that it's wet to the point that if you do it hard, you're going to squeeze. If you do it gently, it won't squeeze out. So one person, Shabbat says, don't do it because you might forget. Right? Two people are going to remind each other. Right? Magen Abraham writes, source 43. Shabbat brings the Magen Abraham that 10 people are permitted to carry other wet garments as they remind each other. And the Rabbah says that even 2 people is permitted because each one would remind each other. Now,
Synthetic is less of an issue. Like it would be better to use like a synthetic.
technically, yeah, because synthetic, we would say there are shitos that would say that they're not absorbing, right? Then they're not issue of schita, perhaps. Yeah, perhaps. But let's take a look. Mishnah Berurah says another way. He says, "Behundavers ein makpid." If he's the item that he's not worried that it's wet, and he can leave it there wet the whole time, he doesn't really care. Then there is no concern that you might come to wring it. So if it's a dirty towel, and I really don't care for that towel, it can stay wet. Then you can pick it up with no problem. We're not worried about schita over there. The whole issue of schita is not schita to just extract. It's schita to be melabing, to do laundry, right? To extract it. And I want it out. I don't really care. I'll leave this here. It'll stay here all day. Then I pick it up. Even if it gets extracted, it's not the problem. So very good. So that's the next part. So says source 45. It's permitted to wipe liquids with standard paper napkins. Since typically a person uses them one time and does not wring them out after using them. So like Rami said, paper towels, napkins, I'm not wringing them out. Right? I mean, in the olden days, maybe your grandmas used to take the paper towel, wring it out, and use it again. Right? And today, most people are not doing that. The paper towel is like it's water, right? That's the fast we're going through that. So that means we're not wringing it out. We don't care for this thing. It's a disposable item. Rev Rosner wants to say that perhaps towels or schmatas that we really don't care about either, and we're not in the habit of wringing them out. Now, those shouldn't be a problem because I'm just I'm throwing it out. It's a one-time use. Now, all this. No. They bring it b'shem him. I'm sure that many sources bring it, but they bring it b'shem him. But take a look at the notes and the footnote 24. In fact, disposable paper towels and napkins for this reason, since even if they become saturated liquid, one has no reason to squeeze them out. Right? So he brings Shmiat Shavik and Chata, he brings the Egot Moshe. So many sources that go with this. Okay, now.
Does it have to get a if you did squeeze it? If I want to if I want to go squeeze the paper towel, am I going to squeeze?
Are you squeezing it because I want that paper towel to be used again?
No.
Stam just ended up squeezing it?
I have some type of oils on my hand.
So the issue is there's still going to be issues. There's still an issue of here was saying schita is not applicable here. Why? Because people don't do schita on these things. These are paper towels that we're just bringing it out. Yeah. So you're allowed to use it because we're not worried about schita. Right. Okay. Okay.
I want to clean I'm going to clean my paper.
You're right. So but you can't still do it on purpose. Right, so that was the Mishnah Berurah that said, I'm not makbid, and I leave it there, I don't care for it, so then I can pick it up. I'm not doing it on purpose. It's just whatever, it happens, I don't really care about it. To go ahead and do it on purpose, that would be a problem. Yeah. That's the next section after this. Page 95. That's next. I know, that's the hot topic. All right, the baby wipes. All right, it's fine. Now, there's one more leniency. Says Tosfot, source 46, Agabe yayin lo gazin mishum schita. If you're picking up wine, right, with the towel, then there's no schita there. Why with no schita? Because in schita is again the process of laundering. I use wet, clean water to launder, and then I take it out. I don't launder. No one, I mean, not nobody. I don't know what people do, but most people are not laundering with wine. No one's going into the washing machine and here. Let me put some wine in here. We're going to wash this up. Doesn't work that way. Okay. So says Tosfot, putting wine, if you're getting up wine, there is no issue of schita there. Right. So that's what he says over there in source number 46. Shulchan Aruch writes in source 47, when it comes to cups, right? They have these cups, and sometimes they're very narrow, right? And you washed it, and now you want to dry it. Says Shulchan Aruch, it's forbidden to dry a cup that contains water or wine with the cloth because one may come to wring it. Why is that? Well, if it's thick, they won't come to wring. It's not a problem. But let's say I'm using something. It's basically I have this cup, I wash. So as I'm moving it out, even though I'm not planning to do schita, it can come out. The cup.
While you're pulling out the napkin,
right?
It
squeezes out because the cup is tight. So Shulchan Aruch says, I don't care if it's water, I don't care if it's wine, and you're forced when it's likely to do schita, right? In this type of cup, don't do it. Don't do it. Says the Mishnah Berurah, comes to wine, one may dry a cup with the residue of other liquids, and there's no concern. And many Achronim maintain that one need not be concerned even with respect to wine, though. With a narrow cup, one should be strict even for other liquids, right? Because you're directly causing the wringing. So you don't want to do the wringing. I don't care about the wringing, but if it's likely to happen, you got to be careful. Just to look on the outside really quick, the Yalkut Yosef, when I read to you from the English Yalkut Yosef, he writes over here, this is all about what we just learned. It's forbidden on Shabbat to carry a garment that fell into water. So someone might wring it out the water. It may however be carried by two people. They'll remind each other. One may carry a wet cloth, and one does not mind the fact that it is wet, such as a rag. If a garment is only slightly wet, it may be carried since you're not going to be wringing it out. Likewise, one may carry a garment that's very wet with liquids other than water. Since there's one, you're picking up orange juice and soda and stuff like that, you can move it. It's not a problem because usually you don't do laundry with these type of liquids. So that's the Yalkut Yosef over there. And then in another source, when it's talking about the drinking cups, it's forbidden to dry inside of a narrow glass with cloth, since it's likely to cause the liquid to be squeezed from the cloth. It's permissible to use a dish towel. Permissible, Rami, to use a dish towel for this purpose, since people do not wring out dish towels when they are wet. They simply begin using another side of the towel. Since no one benefits from squeezing the water from the dish towel, it is a case of enu mitkavein and it's permitted. So again, if it's a cloth that's likely to do that, it's a problem. But if it's a dish towel that we don't really care and it's not likely to happen, then it's not an issue.
Big spill. You don't want to use 100 napkins, paper napkins. It's a waste.
I hear
You
you.
take a big rag and like a rag towel and just put on the ground.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
even if it gets soaked, just leave it there.
It has to be a towel that you don't care about.
Yeah, don't care.
That's not a problem. The only issue is if you care about it, then you come out to schita. If I don't care about the rag and I can leave it there, no problem. It's not a problem with schita.
If it is soaked, then you're not allowed to move it, or if you move it only with two people, how does it work?
If it's soaked with other liquids,
No, I mean, you get with water. No, it's water.
okay.
Big spill of water. You have a giant.
And you
towel,
didn't care about the
rag.
towel?
Don't care about the towel. You throw it on. It absorbs it nicely, but it gets very soaked.
Right. You still want to move it with two people. You still want to move it to two people because if you soak that, you're worried that you might come to squeeze it. You shouldn't move it. Still shouldn't move it. Okay. Fine. Look.
Move it with your feet. You move it
What's
like,
the shina?
say, if you want to get, it's kind of soaked, but in some places.
You don't care for the rag?
Other places, it's not soaked.
You don't care for the rag?
You want to like move it so that it gets cold.
You don't care for the rag, it shouldn't be a problem. You don't care for the rag, it shouldn't be a problem. Listen to this. Says the laws of Shabbat. Rabbi next on. One may not handle an entirely wet garment on Shabbat unless the following conditions are met. Two people pick it up at once. This way, they'll remind the other that not to squeeze a garment. B, if it's a garment that one does not usually wash or launder. C, it has absorbed another liquid other than water or other clear liquid, so seltzer or something like that. Otherwise, it'd be okay to move it entirely wet garment. Your case, maybe you don't even need two people. I would say to still use two people. This way you never, you low plug, you always know if you have a wet garment, you use two people, so you never get to a case of that. But technically, if it's an other liquid, or you don't usually wash or launder that garment, then you technically can move it even one person.
We use a dry mop, a big mop. It's and power will soak up all the liquid.
We'll get to that. Is that the show? Let's continue now. Let's continue. Okay. Now, that all was talking up until this point about dry towels, dry rags, paper towels, napkins, everything that's dry. Can I go ahead and take something that's wet and use that to clean? So says Orchot Shabbat, it's forbidden to use a wet rag for the purpose of cleaning a table or floor because the water is squeezed out from the rag during the cleaning. So I cannot make the rag wet and use it. However, it's permitted to use a dry rag for the purpose of absorbing liquid into it. So one way out, if I want to clean something from the table and I need water on it, I don't put the water on the paper towel, put the water on the table. Let it spread out. And then carefully, I use my paper towel to wipe up the spill. Right? But I can't put water on the paper towel and then start to clean the table. That's not allowed. Okay? Rabbi Ribiat says, hey, you got to pay attention. It's not just the paper towel, says Rabbi Ribiat. The tablecloth, fabric too, right? So if you push the water into the paper, into the fabric, and you try to squeeze the fabric, you try to clean the fabric, what's happening now? I'm squeezing the water out of the fabric. There might be schita not just on the paper towel, might be schita coming from the tablecloth as well, says Rabbi Ribiat. If a drink spilled on a tablecloth, one may gently place napkins over the wet area to absorb the surface liquid. However, one may not press dry cloth or paper napkin against the wet area on the tablecloth to draw out the moisture, because he's now doing schita from the tablecloth. So Rabbi Ribiat says, pay attention. There's schita two ways here. It's a two-way street here. Schita from the paper towel, schita from the tablecloth. So the person has to be careful. That person has to be careful. Let me just see over here what I wanted to bring out. Says the laws of Shabbat for one moment outside the Tzurba. One may not clean up spilled water with a garment that one is generally careful to wash if one were to clean it with it during the week. So something that you're going to wash right away, you can't use it. If one wants to clean a spill of water, then one should use a disposable napkin, paper towel, or rag not cleaned regularly to clean it up. If none of the above is available, one may use a towel or other garment, but one should step in the water first in order to make it dirty before cleaning the water. Okay? Because this way, it's derech lichluch, so I'm not really doing laundry, right? So it's not a problem. In all cases, one should wipe the spill lightly and be careful not to press or squeeze the cloth when wiping. Does it? They bring over here from the Halacha Berurah that it's preferably, if you have a big mess over there with water, you should sweep the water away with the squeegee and then dry it up. All right? So squeegee is one of these rubber thingies. You move the water away, put it down the drain or get it out of the way, and then you use a towel, because this way you're not going to absorb so much water into the towel. No, it's a rubber. It's not absorbing anything.
Well, those you're talking about with the foam?
Yeah.
No, those are not squeegees. Those are
Squeegee.
Those are mop.
Those are not. The squeegee is
Squeegee.
the rubber. It's like the wiper. Rubber.
Yeah. Okay, so take a look now. So this also plays out. Where does this also play out? This plays out. I want to clean my dishes on Shabbat. I'm allowed to wash my dishes on Shabbat. But the sponge that we use on Shabbat has to be a sponge that doesn't absorb, right? Because what is a lot of sponges? What is a sponge? Well, literally, the translation of the sponge. It absorbs, and then you use it, and it squeezes out. That's chita right there. That's not allowed on Shabbat. And by the way, this is something that I've seen that a lot of people don't know. A lot of people don't know. You go to people's houses, you see them on Shabbat, they know you're allowed to wash dishes on Shabbat. Use cold water, use soap, not a problem. And then they're using the wrong sponge. So you got to teach them the right thing, right? They see, so you know what happens? They go into the grocery stores, they see the Shabbos sponge. The Jews found another thing to put an extra on, and make money off it, right? Which is our fault, because we put extra on plastic plates and paper towels and stuff like that. So people, Some people think, everything's Shabbos sponges. That's a real thing. That's not a gimmick over there. Here, take a look at source 51. It's forbidden to wet a fabric, sponge, or rag on Shabbat and Yom Tov. It's forbidden to use it to clean dishes. Even the sponge or rag is inside the bowl full of water. Even if you can't see it coming in and out, still you can't use it. One may not clean dishes with them, even when they're also in the water. Doesn't make a difference. You're actually coming to do this chita. You're not allowed to do that. Take a look. Rav Simcha Banim Kohen is Shabbat home. He writes in source 52. The prohibition of schita, of saturating and filling up the thing, does not only apply to towels. It does not apply to saturating fabric with a liquid that will soil it badly, right? Such as filthy, odorous water. That's not a problem, and it does not apply to merely moistening a clean fabric. So if you're just getting a little bit wet, we saw that. That's not a problem. Shulchan Aruch said that was the Ramah that said that, and also we saw that if it's going into bad water, so you're doing derech lichluch. Look at that third paragraph. Small amount of liquid spilled, one is permitted to blot it even with a garment, with an apron, provided that the garment will not become thoroughly saturated. If a large amount of clear liquid spill, one is forbidden to blot it. Blot it means to put it down, right? But one may use a towel rag or paper towel. If you have a big spill, you don't want to push it down. Because you can push down the napkin or paper towel, you're going to become to squeezing. You just drop it on top of it and let it do its thing. Rabbi Ribiat, in source 53, how can I tell if my sponge that I have is good for Shabbat or not? All right, sometimes they'll put Shabbat sponge, but how do I know it's a really Shabbat sponge? So not squeeze it, but good. Very good. Good test. One can easily test a brush or plastic by immersing it in water and observing whether water drains out readily as it's removed, or it's getting stuck in there. It's getting stuck in there, then you have to squeeze it out. It's chita. So if it doesn't get stuck in there and it comes flying right out, then you know that it is fine. So very good. One you not be concerned about residual droplets. Well, it's not a sponge; it's a Shabbos sponge. Basically, like you said, it's right. It's a scrub. So it's kind of like these plastic thistles, right? Bristles, and you use it to kind of get the dirt off the plates, right, and stuff like that. And it's not sponge. It's not retaining the water. Right. It's not holding any water. If you want, he gives you here in footnote 30. See an example of such a test performed on a scrub daddy. I don't know what a scrub daddy is. Just some sort of sponge, okay? Yeah. So if you go on Torah anytime, you go to this lecture, and he shows you many of the Shabbat sponge brands on the market in both Israel and the United States have endorsements of recognized poskim. However, other poskim have suggested that form of their testing, some of these brands retain water. He says some of them that have the extra on them, they still retain water, and you have to be careful. So you have to take a look. All right, now comes everybody's favorite topic, baby wipes. Yeah. Chita d'Rabbanan. Here is Chita d'Rabbanan. Right? Mechazeh, right? That was the lashon they were using. Mechazeh k'schita. Because it's tightly woven, right? Water gets stuck in the white. Your hair doesn't absorb water, but it's tightly woven. That's the same thing. No. Sponges absorbs water.
No, talking about the Shabbat.
Oh, so no, if so residual water staying over, that's fine. But some of them really retain. That's what he's saying. The ones that we, so I know the ones like like a little handle on the top that have like the red, and they have one in blue, one in red. Those are just thistles. Nothing retains there. That's like it's even further apart than a toothbrush. Right. So I don't know which other one is it. The one they show you, the Zomet Institute endorsed Shabbos sponges. The one on the left, on page 93. I don't know. I never used that one. I don't know what to tell you. It retains. You put water, you take it out. The water come flying out of it.
There's always water
that's fine. That's fine. Look at that sentence. In the parentheses, page 93, in the parentheses in source 53, one need not be concerned about residual droplets that cling naturally to the bristles and fibers.
What happens to the hair?
This is not a sign of absorption, but is merely a characteristic of what occurs to wet glass or any wet, non-absorbent surface due to surface tension.
Well, you just said it twice.
Okay. So what are you saying? You're not to squeeze out your hair?
Whatever you say here, say there. Why you?
We do say that. We do say that by hair also. we do say it to a degree. We wash our hands. We wipe them on the towel. You have here on your hands, most of us, all right? We don't make a big issue out of it. Okay. We at points we really like then there is no schita by here. Really, there isn't. It's mechazek, it's schita, so we tell you be careful about it. But it's really not. The same thing with the toothbrush. Same idea with the toothbrush. Whereas all thistles are all very close together. So again, it's here, it's synthetic fibers, stuff like that. You have what to rely on for the toothbrush, you have what to rely on over here. All right. Now let's get into the big topic of the day, which is baby wipes. Right? Can I not use baby wipes on Shabbat? He doesn't bring it here, but that's the way I understood it as well, is the olden day baby wipes and today's baby wipes. Very different. If you remember the ones that used to come in the buckets, right? And like this hard plastic, and there was like tons of water on the bottom, like a liquid on the bottom when you get towards the end. Today, when I buy them, they come into this thin plastic. There's like no water in them. It's there's no water flying around freely there, and it's just a moist towelette, right? The towel, the baby wipe has some moisture to it, but you don't really see liquid in it. So really, the dinim might have changed based on the physical properties of the baby wipes. But let's take a look. The Har Tzvi lived not a long time ago, but obviously when the baby wipes weren't as it was today. Let's see what he says. He says over here in source 54, when it comes to baby wipes, there's no issue. The ein bezem mishum elabin, right? What's the kol hachshash shel schita? The whole issue of schita, hu b'shat hakinuach, hare melach lech. Here, what's going on? The whole time when I do schita, I take a bag, right? I'm cleaning, I'm doing laundry to it. I soak it, I agitate it, and I wring it out. I'm making it clean and ready to use. When I'm using a baby wipe, even if there is schita, says the Har Tzvi, the schita happens at the time that I make it dirty. Right? I'm not, there's no laundry here. How then can one say that wiping the paper that causes wringing would be forbidden to the whitening as you clean the paper? When at the time of wringing and while one is wiping, one dirties the paper and disposes of it. There's no laundry, says the Har Tzvi. Yeah, there might be schita, he says. There might be schita. Schita is not a laundry schita. It's not malabe. So
you can just say the same thing to the paper towel.
But there's
when you're wiping thing, also you're dirtying the paper.
It's true. But a paper towel, now that's why we say paper towel is better to use because you're throwing them right out afterwards. Still, you don't want to purposely squeeze it. Now, there is another issue of squeezing. There's two schitas when it comes to malachas of Shabbos. There's the schita of milabein, which is I'm doing the wringing out to get my clothing ready to go, right? I want the water out so I can use the clothing. And then there's another schita. This is schita of dash. The schita of dash is when I want to get the liquid out of the fruit, right? I want to extract the liquid. Nothing to do with cleaning. I want to extract the liquid. I have a grape, I want to squeeze the grape, right? I want to get the grape out. I want to get the grape juice out. Schita in order to get the liquid. 1 second. Is that not what's happening with a baby wipe? I'm squeezing it in order to get the liquid.
You don't drink this.
Let's say it squeezes out. Let's say water extracts when I apply pressure to the skin. Water comes out. And guess what? If it happens, I hear you. It may not actually happen with today's wipes, but it happens. Let's say it happens. I apply pressure to the skin and water comes out. Do I want that water?
Well, what value does water have?
That's how I clean it.
No. But
that's how I clean it. If that's the case, I'm cleaning the baby, yeah. But that's why I want. That's okay. Maybe I didn't explain. That's why I want the wood. I want a liquid so I can clean it. So I want that liquid. If I want that liquid, so maybe it's not schita of milabein because I'm dirtying it, but schita of dash.
You mixing up two things. So when you're squeezing the grape or other fruit, You want this liquid because you want to drink it. It has certain
I
value.
have a value to it.
Yes, this one is just wiping to
Well,
make it.
there's no value to getting yourself clean. There's no value.
If you lose like 3-4
What are you
drops,
gonna do
what
with
are
this
you losing?
I'm still having hana from it. I'm still having a benefit from it. Take a look at Rabbi Ribia, source 55. One should not use pre-wetted wipes in Shabbat to clean the child during diapering because their use involves schita. The consumer is expected to extract the absorbed liquid solution while wiping the cloth from the baby's skin. Because the wiping action is meant to extract and absorb liquid, it must be classified as an act of mifarek, which is forbidden, which is schita of dash. So it says Rabbi Ribia, you can't use baby wipes. You're doing extraction of liquid. Now, he writes on page 96 on the top, certain major poskim are quoted to have permitted the use of pre-wetted wipes on Shabbat and Yom Tov. The explanation given for this view is that most of the moisture of this cloth is not absorbed within the fibers. You hear this? The Hidush is they're saying that the water is not in the cloth. It's not in the baby wipe. It's merely settled upon the surface of the cloth. So there is no extraction, says these poskim. The wetness is on top of the cloth. It's not in the cloth. If it's on top of the cloth, then I'm not extracting anything, says this poskim. Even according to this lenient rulings, pressure and vigorous wiping should be avoided during use to avoid an inevitable act of genuine schita of the fluid that is actually absorbed. And then he writes that he went through different companies and people, different ways of making things. And he writes, whenever possible, to avoid using them. Okay? Avoid using them. He doesn't want you to use baby wipes. Rabbi Ribia is machmer. He's saying there's an issue of schita, issue of schita by dash, and you shouldn't use baby wipes. Orchat Shabbat takes a similar approach. And he says it's forbidden to use most moist wipes because of schita. It serves schita. That's Rabbi Reuben, Rabbi Yitzchak Reuben, I believe. Right, just show. Chazon Avadia, source 57. He writes, it all depends how you use it. Okay? It all depends how you use it. He says most wipes that are made to dry and wipe babies after have performed their bodily function are permitted. However, one should be cautious to wipe gently and not press the wipes forcefully because you don't want to do schita. So Chazon Avadia is pretty makel here. He says, use them, but don't do a rough, tough type of job with it. Use it gently, and you're not going to have any problem of schita. So too says the Shemonat Shabbat Kilchata. He says, worth, right? One does not squeeze, and this will be okay. No prohibition of ringing here if you're going to use it lightly. They bring down from the Shal Tzurba of Dibarta Bam. This is Rabbi Baruch Moskowitz, a student of David Feinstein, and he writes that Moshe Feinstein held that one may use baby wipes on Shabbat. And then going back to Moshe Feinstein times, baby wipes were pretty soaking, okay? And he says that you're allowed to use them on Shabbat. There was no concern. Rabbi Usher Weiss here goes through a very nice arichas over here. We'll do a little bit of it just to give us an understanding. We're on source 60. If anyone wants to take a look inside, page 97, source 60 of Usher Weiss. So this is a Heintige Poisik, right? This is today's Poisik. He writes as follows. In my humble opinion, the halacha follows the earlier lenient ruling. Is my extensive tests. So he's done tests on baby wipes. Part of the Poisik's job, right? They have Moshe used to go under the refrigerators to see how they worked, right? To figure out the halacha. Sometimes Brelski also was known to take apart things and look at things and see how they know, so you know how to apply the halakha. So he says, I did tests and have shown that with typical usage of baby wipes available today, right? His lashon available today that are here around today. Amitzim kayoim b'shuk ain't schita klal. There is no schita at all. I'm telling you, it's very true. I remember just from 10 years ago, from 13 years, when I had my first baby, 12 years ago, till today, the baby wipes are completely different.
But the goal is what? The goal is to clean surface, not to.
He's saying that there is no water in most of them. There is no schita. When I use it regularly, nothing's coming out. He says, I did this test. I checked it. Nothing's coming out. They're manufactured in a way that liquid rests on the surface of the wipe. Again, going back to this, liquid's on the top. It's not inside. And it's not absorbed into it. And the purpose of these wipes, he writes, is to release a small amount of liquid onto the skin, which then evaporates on its own. That's the way they're making them, right? The usage is good. Usage is I use it, throw it out. I don't have to worry about liquid falling out here. No, that's the way they want to make them. The baby remains wet. It can lead to irritation or infection. So they don't put a lot of liquid on purpose, so it doesn't stay on the baby. Okay. Therefore, these wipes are specifically designed to minimize absorption, with most of the liquid remaining on the surface. If the wipes are absorbed the liquid deeply, the quantity of liquid will be much greater. And drying will be required after using the wipes. Because I'll prove it to you. You use the wipes. You're not using napkins to wipe yourself after. You're using paper towel to wipe the baby after using the wipes. That means there's not enough liquid in there. It's very minimum. There is no issue of schita. He says, I confirm with factory producing wipes, and they use materials not absorbent, so they don't disintegrate. Whereas if you have too much water there, the wipes itself are going to get ruined if it sits there a long time. So they have to make it in a way where it's not a lot of water in there. Similarly, so he brings all this. So why are you saying cotton? So we're going to see the difference between cloth and paper. If it's paper wipes, it's better. I mean, if it's not cloth. If it's not cloth wipes, it's better. If it has fabrics in them, now you might come to an issa deraisa of schita, right? And if it's paper, if it's it's synthetic fibers or not really cloth, you have less issues. So cotton may be an issue. You might want to stay away from the cloth ones. So he writes over here, take a look at page 98. In the middle there, Yesh lahater mishnei tamim. There's two reasons to be matir. One, it's almost certain that there's no schita at all. All right? It's karv levadai, says Rav Asher Weiss, that nothing's happening. No schita is happening. And two, even if there is schita, it's a davar she'enu mitkaven, and the gam sikrei she'en kan. So he writes that it's permissible. Then he says, and I saw people put out publications that scientifically they check, and there is liquid coming out. And he says over here, by the way, the halacha doesn't go by scientific inquiry, right? This guy just said he did tests, right? He says it's not what you see on the microscopic level. It's what you see with your eyes, lahalacha. And lahalacha in the eyes, you don't see schita happening. Now you bring a microscope and you start, there is schita with the baby. That's not the way we give halacha. We give halacha from what we see. And what we see, there is no schita, and therefore, baby wipes is permissible. Says the same thing of Yosef Tzvi Rimoin in source 61. He writes as well that there is definitely no issue of melabin by no schita by melabin because you're not laundering here, and the schita of dash. He says the same idea that these are not made in a way to do schita, and therefore they are permissible. And it comes out, Lamaisa, it is a machloket poskim about using baby wipes on Shabbat. A person should go with the approach of the Alkut Yosef, which is you can use them, but don't use them very vigorously. Use them lightly, so you're not going to come to any schita. Just want to mention two last things. In the laws of Shabbat, here Rabbi Nachson says, he asked Rav David Yosef about using baby wipes for adults, because they kept saying using it for a baby. Is there a difference between using it for a baby or for adult? So he asked over here, Cham David Yosef, and he told me, father allowed the use of wipes not only for children, but also for adults. Okay? And then he writes over here in the Alkut Yosef Kitu Shulchan Aruch 324, he writes that if the wipes are made out of cloth material, then there's more of a reason to be strict and one should refrain from using it. So if it's made out of fabric, cloth, you should stay away from it. You want to get the ones that are not cloth. So if you ever go to the Jewish supermarkets, they sell the pre-approved, with ashgacha on it. You take a look at it, it's not cloth. It's like a synthetic something in there that's very little bit wet, and you can use it. You can use the ones that I use at home for the kids is the sensitive Pampers, and I'm telling you, there's no liquid in there. There's no liquid. You don't see liquid. You use it. There's nothing there. It's like you said, it's on the surface, and there's no liquid in the package. You finish the whole package, there's no liquid in there, and those would also be permissible. Just make sure that it's not made out of cloth, because the cloth will become. You should be more strict with it. Okay, Rabotai, this ends the shir on Milabin in this regard. Next week, Be'ezrat Hashem, we're going to look at Milabin in a dry factor, meaning I have some dirt on my clothing. Can I scratch it off? I have some mud on my shoe. Can I take it off? Right? That also could be considered laundering, and that will be also somewhat of an issue, scraping and cleaning it and stuff like that. And then if we have time, we'll start the next shear as well. Yes.
I saw this one time, I saw a store where they sell the wipes liquid, you spray first, and then you can put the napkin over it. I saw it once.
So you're putting liquid on the baby. Yeah, that's fine.
And that's what Tzurba.
Yeah, that's like the table we said. You can't put the water on the paper towel. You can put the water on the table and then lightly, what's it called? Wipe it up. Yes. We have minyan. רבי חנינא בקשה אומר, רצה הקדוש ברוך הוא לזכו ישראל. לפיכך יבוא להם תורה מצוות שנאמר, אדוני חפץ למען צדקו יגדיל תורה וידיר. אמן. אמן. אמן.